Hello and good morning. My name is Madeline and I will be your host today. Welcome to today's presentation, your roadmap for growth and efficiency in 2022. Before we get started, I just want to make sure that all of our systems are running smoothly. Is my screen not the full screen? Just give me 1 second. How's that? Does that look better?
Yes, it does.
Perfect. So sorry about that. Glad we got that smoothed out. Today you'll be hearing from our close friends and partners, Brad and Dave Yoho, Tim Mush, and Gordon Fairbooks. We want this webinar to be as interactive as possible. Throughout the presentation, if you have any questions, you can go ahead and put those in our chat box for us, and we will try to answer them as we go. And if not, I will make sure that you get an email with all of your questions answered for you. I would like to introduce Mr. Brad Yoho, the Vice President of the Dave Yoho Associates. He is the brain and manpower behind some of the most well-known training seminars in North America. Brad, why don't you take it from here?
Thank you, Maddie. Appreciate the partnership with LEAP, and we are excited to participate in this powerful industry session today. So in today's program, 3 attendees are going to receive a complimentary copy of our best-selling package, How to Run a More Profitable Business. And this is going to expound upon much of the content you'll hear today. It contains over 8 hours of recorded material, a complete workbook, and it's regularly $475. However, to win a complimentary copy, you must stick around until the end where we will announce the winners. If you could go ahead and bring up the next slide, please. So growing and scaling your business efficiently is an industry-wide challenge that is complicated by the issues that are impacting the marketplace this year. You can go ahead and bring up the poll, Maddie, that would be great. Before we dive into the content, let's start out with this poll to evaluate what you believe will have the greatest impact on your growth and efficiency in 2022. Take a moment to respond. We're going to leave the poll up for about 20 seconds. Now, material shortages continue to exist across the industry. Finding the right candidate to match your job and openings and retaining them remains a significant challenge. Inflation costs are greater than at any point since 1985. And lastly, the cost of an issued lead keeps rising. And with it, your marketing costs may be increasing. And if they are not calculated in a proper manner, you may not fully be aware of it. So if you could go ahead and bring up the results here in a second. Now, you may have wanted to answer this poll with all of the above, because the hard truth is that most industry companies are experiencing all of these challenges in their journey towards better efficiency and net profit. The next 60 minutes were specifically designed to provide you with an action plan to address them. Now let's bring up a few questions that we received from our registrants as you see the poll results on screen now. If you could go ahead and bring those up, thank you. So let's cycle through these rapidly. How do we get our managers and sales personnel to buy into the need for price increases? Price increases are happening, they're going to continue. It's a challenge in many companies to be able to transmit this to their people, to get them to buy into it, to understand that they need to present the value, not the price, to the homeowner and engage them that way. Next question, please. So what are the key elements of a successful pricing formula in 2022? We're going to really dive into this. This is something that we have presented as something that not enough companies really dive into their pricing formula in the right way. And we're going to show you how to do that on the program today. Next question, please. What are some modern creative methods we can utilize to become more efficient as a company? We're going to deal with metrics. We're going to deal with KPIs. We're going to deal with methods to help you generate, manage, track your leads better. That's going to be covered also on today's program. Go ahead and bring up the next slide. So we conducted several industry surveys on over 2,000 industry companies during the first 2 months of 2022 to drill down on the challenges they are facing and how these issues may be impacting their net profit. Of the respondents, 58% have cash flow problems, which are subsequently impacting their payments to suppliers. 43% stated they have marketing expenses equaling 12 to 20% of their total revenue. And in several cases, we found that businesses are not allocating their costs appropriately. And this leads to an incorrect calculation of their net profit. 37% have incorrect or outdated retail pricing methods. And 20% are using obsolete compensation systems, particularly regarding sales personnel and installers. 31% paid taxes on uncollectible amounts and unusable inventories. And our research showed that several companies were not being advised in a sufficient manner on how to address this. However, the last line on the slide really jumps out. 41% of the surveyed companies made a pre-tax profit of 3% or less. And this is excluding salary and expenses they drew. So ask yourself the following. In the search for increased revenue and higher close rates, are you really earning the net profit that you are entitled to? Bring the next slide up, please. Here are 6 common areas we see in our client interactions. Now, due to the limited time today, not all of these will be covered in depth, but all attendees will receive our free white paper, The 12 Greatest Mistakes That Businesses Make. That's going to come in a follow-up email after the event. But let's dive into these a little bit here. An outdated business plan and operational model. If you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. And if you know where you're going, you need a plan that works. When was the last time you reworked your business plan to account for changes in your products, pricing, prospects, or other factors? How about your operational model? Does it sufficiently function as a blueprint for how many sales representatives you need? How to assign leads efficiently? What your expected return is on issued leads? Your anticipated close rate against presentations, and how gross and net sales amounts will be calculated. Improper pricing and or training on how to present the price. The 7 most expensive words in business are, we have always done it this way. Maybe your previous job exposed you to an outdated pricing formula, or you heard that adding a certain percentage to labor and materials will ensure a net profit. Neither of these is an effective method of calculating your price, and this is going to be covered in more detail shortly. In addition, are you providing your sales representatives with the proper training and tools to deliver the necessary price increases to your prospects? Now let's tackle ineffective distribution and the control of leads. Many companies do not implement proper efficiency standards for their marketing and sales representatives, and this is a recipe for disaster. To begin with, every lead you receive must be responded to immediately, and you must modify your inbound and outbound scripting to reflect this. Also, remember that without sufficient controls in place, your sales personnel may qualify leads on their own to determine whether they are worthy, in their minds worthy, of a complete needs assessment. Now, the average cost of an issued lead in this industry ranges from $275 to over $500. So factor this out based on the number of leads you give your sales personnel every month, and the total is staggering. Another issue we see is marketing costs not clearly defined, allocated, or managed. Marketing budgets have gotten out of control due to new internet strategies and a lack of understanding for how and how often to measure ROI. It's not enough to develop an annual marketing budget. You need to have the patience and fortitude to stick with it. Outmoded compensation methods. How are you incentivizing your personnel? Are you onboarding them in a manner where they can maximize their earnings quickly? Do you recognize that monetary bonuses and incentives are not enough for many individuals? So how can you provide long-term value to your personnel and make them feel as if they are invested in what you sell to your prospects? Lastly, insufficient safeguards to ensure net profitability on each contract performed. Now, historically, this has been the biggest issue we see in working directly with our clients. And we're going to cover this in more detail now. If you could bring up the next slide, please. Now, to do so, I'm going to bring on my father, Dave Yoho, who is the president of Dave Yoho Associates, the oldest, largest, and most successful consulting company representing businesses in the industry. Now, many of you may be aware that Dave introduced and modernized the approach to step-based, systematic selling in this industry. What you may not be aware of is his unrivaled background in working with leading companies and their owners and executives to develop proven pricing formulas and accompanying procedures that maximize the net profit on every contract. Now let's bring Dave into the conversation to discuss this. Dad, over to you.
All right, thank you very much. A pleasure to be here this morning, and thank you, Leap, for our extended partnership. Look at this myth. Our products, they're talking about your product, services, and or customers are different. So let's dispel this right away. That's a myth, meaning it's not been proved. There are ways to price your product that ensure a profitability, and the word profitability will be challenged in just a couple of minutes. Despite your product, despite your territory, despite how you market, you have to ensure that you have profitability. The formula will always remain the same. Now, the numbers, the costs will vary from time to time and will be modified by your intent as to how much profitability you want to inure from your efforts. Next slide, please. So why don't many industry companies, even those who exemplify best practices and cautious budgeting, make the profit to which they are entitled? Because you don't understand the profit to which you are entitled. I'll repeat it. It's not criticism. You probably do not understand the profit to which they are entitled. I don't blame you. I don't blame your accountant. Your accountant gives you a P&L, and certain part of that P&L will say cost of goods, that's at the top, and beneath it, it will say gross profit. The word profit is improper. This is not profit. It is extended what you have left after your costs of labor and material. They're called direct costs. So with all of that, I ask you to start by examining your pricing method. It probably, in all probability, needs renew, review, and restructure. Create more effective ways to retain what you earn. You are in a specialty business. If you once were in the building business, this is not the building business, this is the remodel, home repair business. And the reason you don't make the profit is you don't see what you're going to have to put in this and the effort it takes and the amount of money that you're extending to become successful. Hear this statement: profits of less than 10% pre-tax, profits of less than 10% pre-tax net are not in the best interest, and most companies have to look more realistically at what that means. Remember, the profit shown by public corporations that you see in the stock market is after taxes and something we call set-asides, which you're not entitled to do for various contingencies. You don't have any of those things. Every year, sometimes every month in many of your businesses, like opening a new business again. But if you desire to be a larger, more profitable company, act like it. Sigmund Freud once defined insanity as doing the same thing repeatedly and anticipating a different outcome. Turn the slide, please. First thing I want to get to is this difference in words. They shouldn't even be in our vocabulary today, but they're taught in business school. How much is your product and service marked up? So someone will say, I take the cost of goods, by labor and material to perform a function, and I multiply that by 3. So that's 3 times whatever that is. So that sounds pretty good. Another will say, what we learned years ago from our manufacturer was if you multiply by 2.5, you're in a safe area. And in all cases, that's true if that's what you actually sell the product for. But if you mark up by 3 times or 2.5, and then the people who sell this are entitled to give an incentive drop or a price adjustment or fight the price that's lower than theirs. All those things are taking away from your net pre-tax. All of those things are taking away from your pre-tax net. So the markup didn't mean anything at that time. And here, the words marked up. Marked up means how much you're going to add to it, what numbers will you add to it, and markup is what you come out at the end. So if you multiply by 2.5 against cost of goods sold, it would mean, I'll do the arithmetic for you, that your labor and materials should not be exceeding 40%. Your labor and material will not be exceeding 40%. That means you've got 60% to spend where you spend it, and let's see how quickly it goes before you even get the job started. Direct costs, sales and marketing costs. The direct costs are the cost of goods, often referred to as COGS, cost of goods sold. They are the direct costs. I am not fighting with your accountant. I am not telling you anything that is going to change the way you file at the end of the year and when you file your income tax. If you're a C corporation or an LLC or an S corporation, you, and the last two, you have what we call pass-through income, but the income has to be there to pass it on. Sales and marketing costs, that's everything that you can think of when you go to a home show, the people that participate, the transportation, the sample. If you have a showroom and you own the building and the sales and the showroom is 12% of your actual area space, then 12% of your rent, light, and heat, even though you own the building, should be going into your marketing costs. General and administrative costs, that's everything that's left after this business of direct costs, sales and marketing costs, and then the G&A, general and administrative costs. And what you end up with is a net profit. Now you can only spend what you make up. Next slide, please. I trust that I haven't confused you by now, and I hope you had an opportunity to look at these slides and understand them. Let's assume, for the sake of argument, that you pay your salespeople 10%. But if you look at it, you have a sales manager, you have other costs involved with it, you give bonuses to your salespeople, and you take the actual sales cost for your company. How will you know it? You simply say to your accountant, I want to create a chart of accounts and everything relative to sales going to go in that account. Then you look at your P&L statement and you demand that your accountant or whoever, even if you do it internally, you do it with QuickBooks, make sure you have a percentage at all times. What percentage of this relates to revenue? And so at the end of the year, the end of every month, the end of every quarter, you're able to see what your sales costs are. Marketing costs, fully loaded. I explained all the things that you have to think about. It's not uncommon. You heard Brad say, we just did a recent follow-up survey, and we noted that here, a cost issued, even in a small company, with a cost really delineated. I don't care if you're in direct mail or canvas, whatever you're doing, you've got a cost to developing those leads. And the only thing that comes out of the lead is when you make a sale. But the marketing costs are there to produce those leads, whether you make a sale or not. So with that, you say 15%. Some people will report it in the survey, a lead distribution cost as low as a couple $100, $265. Others over $500, and we're very, very, we don't divulge any sources at any time, but we have some big operations who make a lot of money who spend $700 and $800 to produce a lead to give to the salesperson. Is the lead better? Nah, listen, the lead is a lead is a lead. It's how it's handled. Now you take G&A. If you take from your revenue each month and break it down to what you had to spend versus what you spent, it may scare you. But now you look at this every month, you have your rent, you have your heat and water and taxes and all those things that go into general and administrative costs, including your owner's salary. Even if you're an LLC, and if you're paying yourself a salary and you never exceed that salary by $125,000, and those of you who are going to win my Well, I took that thing that they're telling you about that's recorded. That took me 3 weeks of recording when we put that all together, but we'll show you in there many of the things that are lost in all of this, but where these direct costs come from. So you moved ahead on the slide to me and I wasn't ready. So if you can go back to the other slide, I'm still there. So now if you see the net projected profitability is 10%, that means what you are entitled to. You sell a $5,000 job when it's all over, when everything is, you have $5,000 job, you only have $500 in there to play with. The minute you break your price by $300, now you're down to $200. It happens all the time. You'd rather have the deal than not have the deal. And you're going to tell me that the revenue will be made up in abundance. It doesn't really work that way. So if you took these things and you took the 13, the 15, the 22, and the 10, and you see that they add up to 60%, they're actual figures that you can pull off of your operating statement at any given time. And you subtract that from 100. 100% means what did you sell the job for? Now, let's say you got a $25,000 job. And hopefully in the $25,000 job, you got that 10% of $2,500. So then the selling price up here would be whatever it is, a $25,000 job. And then you take less 60%. That's the actual and projected cost that you're facing there, besides your labor and material. In this case, then it shows that the net difference should never be, your net difference should never exceed 40%, meaning you set your accounting up, whether it's QuickBooks or however you do it, that at the end of each job, you can look at it and say, we had a $25,000 job, and here's what we spent for labor and material. The direct cost on each job should not exceed 40%. Next slide. Now we're to the next slide. All right. All right. So how to determine your retail price? I do this on a window, which is the easiest to explain, but it works with anything you have. And I've been teaching this concept. I come from a business school education, so I had that in my favor. But I have friends who never went to college, some never went to high school beyond 11th grade, and they follow these directives. So if I look at the cost of a window, and just don't tell me yours is higher or lower. If your window costs $350 and the trim and miscellaneous caulking, whatever you have to do to put that window in is $15, and the labor to install that window, including remeasure, is $100. Those things add up to $465. Now do the projection. That has to represent 40% of your selling price. 40%. If it's not 40%, then your formula is wrong. But let's look at it again. $350 for the window, $15 for the incentive, for the miscellaneous trim and what have you, and $100 to put it in. Whatever they are. Don't say yours is more or less. Whatever they are on this is a unit. A square of roofing, a square of siding is a unit. A foot in the kitchen or bath, all the same. It's a unit of cost. And so when you look at it, that represents 40%. So if you divided 40% into that 465, that's your basic arithmetic, you would come out to $1,162 a window. If your window costs $350, if 15%, if $15 was the aggregate miscellaneous and $100 labor, then that window has to sell for no less than $1,162 per window. Now, if you use incentive discounts, as many people do, they offer prizes, they offer 6 months, whatever it is you pay for it. And you have to figure what that costs. And let's just say it represents 10%. You want to add that. You have to adjust your selling price. And you don't do it by adding 10%, because if you have $25,000 and you add 10%, it's $250. And you get a new total and you take 10% of that, you come out below your selling price. So your selling price is that $1,162 that you see there, divided by 9, then multiplied by 10, which turns out to be $1,291 per window. And when you see that as a formula, you are looking at what you should be selling a window for and how much you make from it. Now, I apologize to you. I did this in a very rapid form because in this medium that we're working in, we have a limited amount of time, and I've used my time up. I hope more than giving you information, I have caused questions to arise in your head. And I have that you think that you know your business and you know the way it's going. But if you're not making 10%, you're in the wrong business. Now, those that didn't do a large volume of business in 2021, or those that didn't make a profit, I pray for you because it was the best of times. Now we're coming to the worst of times. Things are going to change this year. At the particular time I'm talking about, we are heading into inflation if we're not already there. We are looking also at the possibility of a recession. These two things haven't occurred at any time like this since Jimmy Carter was in. What better time to look at what you're doing, how you're doing it, and what's the outcome? And remember, if you're doing it your way and you're not making 10%, you're not going to make it up by doing more revenue. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you. Dave Yoho.
Thanks, Dad. Just want to let everyone know these are not scare tactics. These are real issues that are happening right now. The approach here is not to present issues that instill fear. These are things that are coming down the pike. And when you hear Dave talk about inflation, this is something that's very real. We do surveys on this regularly, and this is one of the biggest issues that our clients are expressing to us at the moment that they are concerned about. Now, hopefully you took abundant notes during Dave's session. Now we're going to bring on Gordon Fairbanks. And Gordon experienced many of the highs and lows that industry companies are currently facing while he was the owner of Fairbanks Construction. Gordon developed a reputation as one of the sharpest operational minds in the industry. And instead of rapidly chasing revenue, he built his business in an efficient and scalable manner before selling it in 2019. He currently assists industry companies in maximizing their profit, both on-site and virtually, as a senior account executive with Dave Yoho Associates. And he will share the importance now of letting data drive the critical decisions that you make in your business. Gordon, welcome.
Good morning, everyone. He just aged me. You know, I graduated high school in 1980. I started shortly thereafter as a helper with a subcontractor doing aluminum closures, aluminum work here in Florida. 6 months later, I got my own truck. In August of 1990, I decided I couldn't do any worse than everyone around and started my own business. So in that almost a little over 29 plus years, there's nothing I did in home improvements. There's nothing I haven't done in home improvements except put a headset on and do cold call telemarketing. Okay. So in discussing, you know, growing your business efficiently, I mean, in order to do so, you have to have certain fundamentals in place. Okay. In order to focus on efficiencies, and what I learned is if you learn how to focus on efficiencies, it'll drive incremental profit gains, and which is what we're all after. Okay. But you got to have the right data. So how do you develop a KPI strategy? You know, first of all, I believe you track everything. If it can be measured, consider tracking it. In 1992, I attended my first Dave Yoho seminar. And if you think he was something now, you should have seen him back then. Day two, I went up to approach Dave and about his services. He asked me how much I did, which we had did $1 million our first full year in business. He pointed me to an individual that we sat down and spent probably 3 hours talking. At the end of it said, if you don't do anything else with us, just learn to track everything from how long it takes to answer the phone to how long it takes to start a job and collect the balance. And we took that to heart and we learned how to do that. You know, I'll tell you, you know, his pricing model is one we use consistently and it simply works. Okay. So the first thing I believe you got to have your KPIs in place is you got to have accurate financial information. As Dave just hit on, your COGS, your cost of goods sold, you have to know what your labor and material, your fully loaded cost of materials and labor is, because there's only 100 pennies in every dollar you make, and you got to know that 40 of them or 35 of them or whatever are going to the cost of goods to put it in. And that means I've got 60, 65 cents left. And what am I going to do with it? Okay. So with that, I believe if you have all that, you need to do it, as he said, each individual job. If you're targeted at 40% for your cost of labor and material, it's got to come in at 40% on every job, or else you're diluting what you're trying to make. Okay. If you haven't been measuring, then you have to ask yourself this question before you start. Okay. What's the anticipated outcome? Why am I going to measure this and track it? What's this data going to, how's it going to benefit me or affect my business? Okay. If you're just starting to measure, then identify just a couple of metrics which provide the most beneficial impact to your business. Sales. Are you measuring the demo percentage, the net close percentage, your NSLI, meaning net sales to lead issue, your rescission rate? Are you measuring each individual sales rep, sales efficiencies with your leads? Again, is somebody higher in rescission? Is somebody not giving you the ROI? Because again, leads at we were close to 275 to 300 bucks when I sold, and that's a lot of money when you're giving somebody 6-8 leads a week. Okay. So leads are generally one of your higher costs, and you got to know what your ROI is, what you're expecting to get from that. So you need to determine what that is and track it. Okay. Financing turn down rates. Okay. Identify if certain lead sources have a higher bank finance turn down. Certain sales reps have a higher turn down in that. Measure everything you can. Marketing costs. Cost per issued lead. I know Tim's going to discuss this quite in detail in that, but you got to know what your cost per lead is. Okay. What's your fully loaded marketing costs? And then, fully loaded means fully loaded. If they're occupying 20% of your storefront, your office, then they get 20% of those expenses. Okay. So again, there's only 100 pennies in every dollar that we bring in, and we got to figure out how we're going to keep what we're targeting. 10 at a minimum. I agree with Dave. It's got to be mid-teens because this is a tough business. Okay. Production. How many days does it take them to start a job from the sell date? What's the average days for completion? If you've got hourly crews, what's your revenue per man hour work? What do they need to do to be profitable for you? Who will be responsible for collecting and submitting the info that you're tracking? If you don't have a CRM, I would say get one, but otherwise use spreadsheets. Okay. Sit down with your team and determine the best approach to collect the data that you're going to start tracking. Your first question needs to be, can you explain why we're going to collect this information? If you can, is it the right thing to be tracking? But whatever you're tracking needs to have an impact on your business. Okay. Again, how can you impact the outcome? What actions impact the outcome in the desired direction that you want to go? So you have to determine, is it a who or a what? So if it's people, how do you get those people to perform the actions that you're looking to do? If it's a what, how do you control what you could control to get that outcome you're looking for? Tracking, what's the outcome we're looking for? How do we know when we have achieved peak performance? What's that look like? Okay. How often do we review the info? Is it daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly? The beginning will be different than when you becomes a part of your daily routine. So in other words, in the beginning, you may want to get with that individual that you've assigned this to make sure they're tracking, attaining the right information to make sure you're going to be able to have the desired information that you're looking for. Okay. In the beginning, you may look at it daily, but it may become something you only look at monthly, could be quarterly, but make sure you're tracking things and you're measuring it properly. Next slide, please. Okay, let data drive your business, okay, your decisions, okay? Without the proper data, you're shooting from the hip, and this is a tough business to do that, okay? Again, the information up to now assumes that you're getting accurate and timely financials. I'm going to stress that over and over. I see it time and time again, both in my role with Dave Yoho and Associates, but when I attended, numerous functions for either dealer programs or whatever it may be, the number of people that simply didn't know their numbers was quite astronomical. Okay. I believe you should have your monthly P&Ls. Mine were due on my desk by the 5th business day of the month, the new month. So in other words, if the month, like it ends today on a Thursday, it would be on my desk Wednesday at the latest. Okay, because again, you got to understand, everything we're getting on a P&L is rear view mirror. It's already happened. And in this time, which again, these rapid escalations in material costs in that, we got to be able to make decisions quickly. We're looking to see if a material price, did our product go up and we missed that letter? Did we not get notified? Did our labor costs go up? In other words, did our subs raise their prices and they didn't tell us, or did somehow we miss something as far as we increased our subs or our in-house installers raise their pay? We got to look into that P&L because we don't want to keep repeating that. So as we sell jobs today, we want to make sure based on the P&L that we're profitable what we're selling so we can adjust it timely. Okay. Determine what you want your net profit percentage to be. Again, I go back, I think mid-teens is where you should be. That's not happening overnight if you haven't been tracking it, but certainly is what you should be working towards, okay? So as Dave pointed out, if I want to keep 10 cents and I'm targeting 50% for my cost of goods sold, that means I only got 40 cents left because I want 10, materials and labor cost me 50, I got 40 cents. Is that enough to cover my fixed and variable expenses? Is that enough to cover all my overhead? Okay. How many do you want to stay in your pocket and where are the remaining ones going to cover the cost of the business? I mean, financials to me is what drives everything in our business. Okay. Then you got to ask yourself if you have the systems in place to streamline or automate your processes. We were an early adopter of Leap. The technology that Leap provides to be able excuse me, let me repeat this. The technology that Leap provides to reduce the dependence on the sales staff doing things properly is critical. You can take in contracts could be developed that each line has to be filled before they can move to the next line. Your pricing's built into this model. So in other words, if there's something that we found out we need to make a change on immediately, I can do that internally, send a text to all the reps to refresh the app, and the prices are already adjusted in that. So these are things that we need to do to make sure that we're using technology. If we can find a way to automate something, especially in this difficult market of hiring the right people and hiring quality people, if we can find a way to automate the processes, we should look at it. Now, I'm going to caution on this. Make sure the value exceeds the cost, because as you begin to take on these different types of programs that are available, they all have a cost. And they can certainly, when they begin to combine, you can have a very big monthly going out. Make sure you're utilizing the things and make sure they're adding the value that you were looking for. So based on that, Brad, that's about all I've got.
Thanks for that powerful information, Gordon. The wealth, the knowledge, the experience, the background that Gordon brings is immeasurable, and it is critical to track the metrics for all phases of the lead conversion process. And shortly, Tim Mush from MarketSharp, he's going to dive deeper into this topic. Now, if you could go ahead and bring up the next slide, please. One of our core precepts at any Dave Yoho Associates event is to ask, what is the one idea you learned from the program you plan to implement immediately in your business? Now, hopefully you have had several what we call aha moments, but how do you plan to implement them? Now, because of the valuable time you have invested on today's session, we are offering a complimentary, no obligation, 30-minute growth coaching session with one of our senior account executives. So you can schedule a call with Gordon or one of our other senior consultants to assist you in implementing a strategic plan to combat the issues you are facing in 2022 and beyond. Afterward, you will have the opportunity to work directly with a Dave Yoho Associates account executive on an ongoing basis. One quick note here, this opportunity is only available for business owners or those individuals who are the principal of their company. Now, if you could do me a quick favor, you see the QR code that's on the screen right now. Go ahead and grab your cell phone, mobile device, scan that QR code right now. If you don't have your phone handy or watching the program on your phone, simply click the link before the QR code. Now, if that code's not working for you, we're going to go ahead and chat type it into the chat window so you can access it that way as well. At this point, you're going to be directed to an appointment calendar to go ahead and schedule that 30-minute growth coaching session either by phone or Zoom. Feel free to choose the time that is most convenient for you. After you schedule it, you will be redirected to a brief questionnaire that will assist our senior account executive in addressing your needs during the conversation. However, feel free to complete the questionnaire later so you don't miss the rest of today's session. Now, if you could go ahead and pull up the poll that will couple on what we just discussed here. So that we may follow up with you promptly, if you are a business owner or similar and are interested in a free, no obligation, 30-minute growth coaching call, indicate so by responding to the poll on screen. The only investment we are asking you to make is 30 minutes of your time. Now, if you could go ahead and bring up the poll results when you have a moment here, give people time to respond, and then we'll go ahead and continue on with the program. If you have any questions about this whatsoever, if you'd like to learn more, if you need a little more insight as to what the growth coaching entails, feel free to reach out to me directly at the office. That's 703-591-2490 after our event today. Excellent, thank you for that. So let's go ahead and bring on our next speaker, Tim Mush. Tim is the Director of Business Development for MarketSharp, and he has spent over 20 years creating and refining computerized database marketing systems for this industry. Tim is going to complement Gordon's presentation with specific lead metrics that will provide value in driving efficiency and profit. Tim, please join the conversation now.
All right. Well, thanks, Brad. Good stuff, Brad, Dave, and Gordon. You know, Dave, your discussion about pricing is so on target now, especially with that shocking statistic you guys have with, I think it was like 41% of the companies are making less than 3% pre-tax profit after paying the owner and so forth. That's not good. That's really not good. So, you know, one suggestion I might have to kind of enhance some of the things Dave mentioned on pricing is Qualified Remodeler this month has a great article on pricing. And the way I like to look at pricing right now, because I know all the talk is raise your prices, raise your prices, raise your prices. And for some people, that concept of raising prices isn't very appealing. I think many people think, gosh, that's going to affect my business negatively and things like that. You know, it's really proven not to do that in most cases. But I think a better way to describe pricing right now with some of the things Dave mentioned is now's the time to normalize your pricing. You know, don't look at it as raising your pricing. Get your pricing in order based on what you need to actually run the kind of business you want to run, especially with what's maybe coming down the pike here. Certainly 2020, 21 were boom times for many of us. And I got some numbers I want to share here in a couple of minutes that I think are going to be a little shocking to you. But Dave mentioned something that's possibly coming. You know, I've been in this business a long time. You get these boom times and guess what? What goes up must come down. And it seems to happen all the time. And I love what my friend Brian Kaskabelski and how he describes maybe what's on the horizon for us. You know, he likes to say winter is coming. You know, and I hate to sound negative about that. You know, we shouldn't be negative because there's a lot of positives too. It's just that the companies that really get their act together and get the efficiencies and processes and their pricing in order are the ones that are really going to do well upcoming. So with that, let's go ahead and speak a little bit more on the subject of metrics. Now, as we go to the next slide, a couple of things I want to point out here. This slide really reflects some cool information. And what it is aggregate information from all the users of our CRM, MarketSharp, over the years. It's actually thousands of companies. And can we go to the next slide, please? There we go. Thank you. It's actually the result of thousands of companies and it's aggregate data for the year 2021. And look the way this shakes out. This really describes the conversion process that we all go through and how things end up at the end. And look here, with these companies, which by the way, represents a large share of our industry, 3.1 million leads were generated and managed, through our CRM system by all these companies, resulting in 1.9 million appointments set, which is 61.7%, as you can see on the right, turning into 1.4 million leads issued to salespeople, resulting in 1.1 million leads actually fully demoed or presented. That turned into 379,000 sales for this group with an average sale of $93.80, and total amount of installed home improvements, $3,556 million. So a lot of business here. But I think the point I want to make about this is what's happening over on the right with those percentages. And I think what we want to focus on in 2022 is what I call full funnel marketing. Get every aspect of the sales funnel working as efficiently as you possibly can. And let's widen out this funnel as we get to the bottom, because the next slide is going to point out something very important. So if you would go there, I think there's a metric that many of us don't track. And what this metric is the distinction between inquiries that come into all of our businesses and the actual number of jobs that actually get installed. And as you can see here, last year, that metric turned into be 11.9% of all the inquiries that came into this group ended up being an installed project. And by the way, this metric is one that's really seldom tracked in the industry. I mean, it's great to track closing ratios, net sales per lead issued, all that stuff. But I think this is the metric that really describes your whole conversion process. In this case, 11.9% of inquiries turn into installed sales for this large group of people in our industry. But as you can see in the yellow here, something very interesting happened last year. In 2020, ran the same metrics. And in 2020, the conversion rate from inquiries to net sales was 14.3%. So what we experienced in 2021 is a 21% decrease in lead conversion. Even though leads were probably higher, heck, sales were probably higher, but the efficiency of getting them converted dropped by 21%. So the question we want to ask ourselves is, well, why did this happen in this boom time we're in? And I think the other line there in yellow really kind of describes why it sometimes can happen to us. Along with abundance, sometimes comes waste. And I think that's happened to some of us. Obviously, it's happened because this is a metric that pretty much describes our industry. So what happens is when things are really rolling, leads are coming in fast and furious, we can get inefficient. We can not pay attention to things. We can shortcut things. And now's not the time to do that. It's time to be as efficient as you can so you can really make hay while the sun is shining. So very interesting information here. So going to the next slide, just want to spend a minute or two and kind of take off on what Gordon talked about. And when you think about it, your home services business really does speak to you. And in your car, the way you can get a warning of something going on, you got the dreaded check engine light and all this kind of stuff and warning lights. Don't have that in our business. But what we got is we got metrics and numbers that can tell you your story, which you can analyze and make decisions of how to improve your business. So the question is, it's speaking to you. The question is, are you listening? Do you have these metrics necessary to do this? So I just want to share what I call the 5 gotta have numbers you need to know. Gordon mentioned some of these. So the next slide is going to talk about them. And actually, you're going to see, Tim, there's 6 there. And you're right. I decided to add one at the end there. So briefly, this kind of stuff. Number 1, make sure you know what your full funnel conversion rate is. Exactly the thing we just talked about. The distinction between inquiries and installed jobs. Find out how that is going. Hopefully it's on an upward trend. And then within that funnel, these are important things. Your inquiry to set appointment conversion percentage. This is an area where I see many companies, losing through the cracks. They don't have their people trained up properly, which usually involves a phone call when somebody raises their hand and says, I'm interested in what you guys sell. It usually involves a phone call to get that converted to an appointment. And that takes speed and skill. So if you don't have technology helping you with speed and follow-up, and if you don't have your staff scripted and trained up properly and the skill necessary to understand at this phase, your mission is to sell the value of the visit, not your product. Many people forget that. Huge. So you got to know that. How about your set appointment to demo and presentation percentage? In other words, not all appointments turn into full demos, do they? We just demonstrated that with the metrics we showed you on the last slide. So what can you do to warm up your prospects after an appointment is set to get the highest possible demo and presentation rates? There are some things you can do. How about your salesperson's closing ratio? You want to know that both on issued leads and demoed leads. And how about your salesperson and your lead source net sales per lead issued? Meaning every time you issue a lead from a lead source or give it to a salesperson, how much net sales is coming in. That tells a great story about how performance is. And then finally, the sixth one I added, you really need to know your marketing costs per sale. Now, I know we often talk about lead costs and what your cost per lead is and all that, and we should. But if you just know your lead cost, it really doesn't tell you the whole story. Because you can have a lead cost that's dramatically low, but they don't convert. So your cost per sale is way high. So you got to know your marketing cost per sale with all these lead sources that you're running. So these are important metrics that you really need to know. You know, and going to the next slide, I just want to kind of wrap with, I think, you know, the primary message that Gordon had for you. With these metrics I just mentioned and some of the things Gordon mentioned and so forth. And how about some of the things Dave mentioned, profitability in your business? You know, if you're familiar with this classic book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, you know, one of those 7 habits is begin with the end in mind. And I think that should be our mantra with all these metrics in our business, beginning with profitability. It's another book out there called Profit First. When you think about it, if you know what your desired net profit is for your business, you can work everything backwards and you can get all your costs in line and all that kind of stuff and your pricing in order. So begin with that end in mind for sure, but then have an end in mind for all these other metrics that are important. You know, that conversion rate from inquiries to set appointments, you know, have that goal in mind. We want 73% of those to end up turning into appointments, you know, and then monitor that and then train up people to make sure they're achieving it and reward people that are doing just that. So begin with the end in mind, in my opinion, is really some of the best advice ever given to anybody in business. So the next slide kind of sums up, you know, what my suggestion is in today's marketplace and everything we're dealing with. You know, years ago when I started in this business and sold windows, gosh, it was easy. You know, Dave, you remember this. All we did is put yellow page ads in the paper and wait for the phone to ring. It was a pretty easy thing. Wow, have things changed. So technology can help you in many ways. You know, we at MarketSharp, going to the next slide, think we can help you with these metrics. You know, it can help you with lead generation, lead conversion, managing your production, you know, getting your reputation management going and giving you all those numbers you need. So like Brad, I got a QR code there. If you just take your phone out and point it at that with your camera, it'll give you an opportunity to let us know if you'd like to learn more about MarketSharp, and we'll be happy to reach out to you and give you a glimpse of what this could do for you. Final slide I want to point out is next. And what this talks about is the core of your business really is your data. That's really what much of the message was today. So the data resides probably in your CRM. And what we've tried to do is make the CRM speak and talk and work hand in glove with all these other success tools that are available to you in the field. You know, certainly our friends at Leap and so forth. They integrate, they talk to each other, they make your business extraordinarily efficient. So with that, that's a wrap from me, Brad.
Thanks for the abundance of information, Tim. And if you are not familiar with MarketSharp and how they assist businesses in evaluating their metrics to become more profitable, we highly recommend that you reach out to them. Now we're going to bring back Maddie from Leap here in a second. And remember that 3 people will receive a complimentary copy of our best-selling product, How to Run a More Profitable Business. So make sure to stick around until the end of that so that you're eligible for this powerful audio course. Maddie, back to you.
Thank you so much, Brad, and thank you so much to all of our speakers. I know that I have learned a ton in this presentation, but before I get started, I just wanted to launch the poll here. If you would like someone from the MarketSharp team to reach out to you to get a little more information on what they do, please go ahead and answer this poll right here. I'll give you a few seconds. Perfect. Thank you so much. I will make sure that Tim gets those results so that he can make sure to reach out to you. Again, I just want to say a big thank you to our speakers for such a great presentation. Before we announce those winners, I have a quick question for you, Brad. For those of us who don't win today, I know you're sending out the free white paper, which is great, but on top of that, can you give us any more suggestions for free or affordable resources that we can use to help us scale our businesses?
Sure, happy to do that. We actually just launched our new website a couple weeks ago. It's just daveyoho.com, www.daveyoho.com. A lot of free resources on there. You can invest in how to run a more profitable business yourself if you go to our products page. But on top of that, we have something called a thought leadership hub, which is still being built out right now. But the best part about it is all you have to do is put in your information one time and you can go back whenever you want. And there'll be webinars, podcasts, articles, infographics, just tons of resources across the board in every area. So I'd highly encourage you to do that as well. But if you have any other questions about how you can become more efficient, more profitable, feel free to reach out to us directly. Again, our number is 703-591-2490, or you can email us at admin@daveyoho.com. Thanks, Maddie.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Brad. I just want to remind everyone that today's webinar is brought to you by Leap. Leap is a sales software that reduces errors and redundancies that slow down your sales process. Whether you're in the roofing, windows, siding, flooring, kitchen, or bath, or any other home service, you can use the power of Leap to make customizable sales platform your own. With Leap, you can take your documents, estimates, brochures, personal checks, handwritten notes, and measurements and put them all into one digital location to create a lot of power behind your business. I'm going to launch a poll. If you'd like to schedule a demo with Leap, go ahead and click yes for me. Oh. Perfect. Thank you so much. And now, the moment we have all been waiting for, we are going to announce these three winners. The three winners, we are going to announce them, and then we'll be making sure to reach out to you with an email follow-up. That is going to be the link. You will be getting an email from someone from the Dave Yoho Associates, so make sure you're checking your emails. Congratulations to the winners, Thom Chasebell, Lauren Laurstein, and Chris Eldens. We are so excited to be able to offer you this awesome program, How to Run a More Profitable Business, and I can only imagine how much you're going to learn from that. I also want to just take a moment to, if you enjoyed today's webinar, I want you to come back next week, and we are going to have Mark Richardson and How Fit Is Your Business. He's going to teach you a little bit more on scaling your business and making sure that you have a healthy business plan. Thank you again to all of our speakers. It was a wonderful webinar. I hope to have you back soon. All of our attendees today will be receiving an email with a copy of today's webinar with a recording. Feel free to send that out to all of your friends, all of your coworkers, anyone who you think can benefit from this information. Thank you, everyone.